I just bought this Ferrari 296 GT3 on iRacing, and what better way to learn how to drive it than to drive 250 laps in time trials with the car. All of these laps will be driven on the same track, and what better track than another thing I just bought on iRacing, SPA. Even though this was a great and fun track, it made the challenge much harder than I thought because the track is longer than most of the others, making each lap and editing take longer, so maybe consider subscribing. Coming into my first lap here, and you can imagine just how bad it was. This was my first time in the car, and it definitely shows. I slow down way more than I need to during this first turn, but I don't spin out on the exit, which is good. Now coming through the uphill, I accidentally brake some. It's easy to go full speed. And here at the beginning of Sector 2, again, I'm slowing down so much that I'm turning too early, because I think I'm going to get to the turn faster than I am. The rest of this lap wasn't too interesting. I kept going slow through the rest of the lap, but I was able to manage to keep it on track. And through this final sector here, it should be full speed, but I broke some. Now this is the final chicane, and again, I just keep going way slower than I need to. And even on this exit here, I'm on the accelerator a bit early, and I slide out just a little bit. But I was able to keep it valid, and I come through for a 2:36.779. This lap I just completed was a valid lap, but one of the hardest things during this entire challenge will be invalid laps. For every single spin, crash, or off track I do, that entire lap is invalid, and any PB time I get does not count. But for the next 8 laps, I was consistently up 8 to 10 seconds, but I kept going off track and invalidating. But on my 10th lap, I was able to keep it on track and make over 10 seconds on my previous PB, coming in for a 2:26.759. There we go. There's a valid lap time. After that last improvement, I'm making some quick time. Just 2 laps after that, I get this with 2:26.006, and just 4 laps after that one, I get another PB of 2:25.300. And just this next lap, I come again for my fastest lap of this entire session that I got, with a 2:24.264. My original idea was to do 10 sessions of 25 laps each to make my 250 laps, but one thing I didn't realize was any car reset I did not count for laps during the session. I really only finished 22 laps during the first session, but I do realize this issue and make up for it during the third session. Out of these 22 laps I did, I was able to improve my PB by more than 12.5 seconds, but only 23% of those laps were actually clean and valid. But now that the first session is done, I have a set of 3 tasks for me to complete during this video. First is to learn how to trail brake. This car has a low amount of rotation unless I trail brake, so I think this is vital for fast lap times. The second task is to be consistent in the car. This includes getting less invalid laps and also being consistently faster in the car. And the final task is to get good enough to destroy my competition. I will start checking these tasks off as the video continues. Later that day, I came in for a second session, where it started off bad with 6 off tracks in a row. None of those laps were valid, but on the 7th lap I did this. Through the first part of the first sector, I was up just a little bit, but by the time we got to the uphill, I gained so much more speed I was able to get 6/10 by the end of the first sector and 8/10 through the second sector. I was able to keep it in the green over 2.5 up with a new PB of 2:23.990. And just 3 laps after I got this PB, we're coming back through the finish line in the green again, this time 6.5 up, for a new PB of 2:23.320. And after some incomplete laps and also 8 complete laps, we're coming in the green again, 4/10 up for a new PB of 2:22.899, breaking the 2:23 barrier. And now that the second session is over, taking a look at our first session with 23% clean, and our second session with 14% clean laps, we're really going to up these numbers if we want to complete task number 2. Coming back for day 2, I joined up session 3, but this is one of the worst ones I'll have this entire challenge. I kept getting invalid laps, and any valid laps I got were way too slow for a PB. After only 18 laps, I decided it was enough of this and I'll come back the next day. The next day on day 3, I come in for the 4th session, but before we do that, I head into a test session where no laps or lap times will count. And this is to finish the first of 3 tasks, to learn how to trail brake. I use the live reset feature to do each corner over and over, learning to trail brake better and better until we can finally check off this first box. So, now trail braking is done, and there's only 2 more tasks to do this video. I was hoping during the 4th session after learning trail braking, I could be more consistent and faster because I learned that, but that didn't end up fully happening. I finished the session with 12 out of 28 laps being clean, meaning I had 43% of my laps valid. Even with this newfound consistency, I was still unable to get a new PB, but even if I wasn't faster, I still got closer to completing my second goal of being more consistent. The next day I came in for a 5th session, which started out much better with 7 clean laps in a row, which is a massive improvement. And just on the second lap, I'm coming in 2.5 tenths up for a new PB of 2:22.652. And just 1 lap after that, we're coming back through again, almost 7 tenths up, breaking the 2:22 barrier with a 2:21.982. Massive improvement, but that was it for the rest of this session. The amazing thing of this session as well is I had 58% of my laps clean, another massive improvement to my consistency. Later that day I came in for a 6th session, which started off badly, having 8 invalid laps in a row before getting even my first valid one. It took all the way until the 12th lap to get a new PB though. I lost some in the first sector but gained some during the second and third. I was able to keep it in the green the rest of the lap, and coming through the finish line 2.5 tenths up, I come in for a new PB of 2:21.749. The rest of the session had barely any invalid laps, and I finished with 22 laps, 45% of which being clean. And coming into the 7th session, we are at 142 laps of 250 with just 108 laps to go. And during this session, it was pretty uneventful. I somehow became really consistent in the car, but I only got 1 PB time on my 31st lap. It wasn't great as midway through the second sector here, I was 3.5 tenths up, but I had to slow down a lot to keep on track, and lost more than the time I had gained. I was able to make it back up, and finish almost 3.5 tenths up by the finish line, for a new PB of 2:21.413. The other thing about this session was 70% of my 33 laps were clean. And in my opinion, I think that constitutes for the second task of being consistent in the car being checked off. Now skipping straight past the 8th and 9th session where nothing really happened, I did 25 laps each with 64 and 60% clean laps. All of this video has led up to here, on the 8th and final day, 10th and final session with only 25 laps to go and about 1 hour left to make one final improvement and end on a good note. The session started out pretty mediocre with not many off tracks, but also not many great fast lap times. But on the 14th lap, I went and did this. Yeah, I crashed. It wouldn't happen very often, but every time it does happen, I have to reset the car and that lap time will not count. I wouldn't show it much in the video because it takes up so much time, but after I did that reset, something must have clicked in my head, because the very next lap after that, I did this lap. That's how I do that turn. That's how I do that turn. I'm losing a lot here. but I still gained. That's some good stuff. I got purple sector too. Yeah, after that final improvement, I was feeling pretty good. I finished driving the other 10 laps of the session just to finish up my 250 lap goal, and it was a good one to end it on, having 72% of my laps being clean as well. And through the finish line, 250 laps. There we go. Alright. And one thing you may notice is I never actually checked off this last box. This is because I'm not actually doing races during this video, so you'll have to come back during other videos to see if I am able to beat everyone during races. And if I were to continue this challenge, there's definitely some major time gains to be had. If you take a look at my optimal lap, which takes all my best sectors and makes one lap from it, I could make a 2:20.298, which is almost a second up from my PB. And if I were to get another good lap, I know I could gain about 0.2 in the first turn. This double left-hander here I was pretty slow at again, gaining about 0.5 pretty easily, and the final chicane I broke a bit early and I could probably gain about 0.2 there. And that's just the easy stuff to gain. But again, that optimal lap does really show what I could gain.